Hoffman?
Here.
Mr. Bombshell?
Here.
Mrs. Neal?
Here.
Mr. Sheets will be present. He is running late from work.
Mr. Subitz?
All right, thank you. Moving on to recognitions.
So we have some recognitions, and for those that are in the audience this evening, our sincere apologies for the late start here. We had another meeting in the executive session prior to this, and so again, I apologize to keep people waiting. So that being said, we are excited to do some recognitions. The first item that we'd like to celebrate this evening is to recognize our Special Olympic athletes, and I'm going to invite Mrs. Mandy Kircher to come up and share a few accolades about what Special Olympics is and what our wonderful students did this year.
10th, our Special Olympics was held, and the students competed over in Berks County, and they competed with, I think, approximately 10 other school districts. Mrs. Sheets and Miss McLean, our high school teacher, and our intermediate middle school teacher, both led that organization and charge, and we had athletes from K through 12th participate. We had over 50 athletes, and a lot of them participated in things like long jump, the softball throw, and different things. And we had some fierce competition. All of our relays and the different races and things were also partnered with other mentors within the district, so that the students definitely had support with each of the different areas that they competed in. So I want to take this time to recognize Mrs. Sheets and the Olympians for all of their hard work and dedication to that day. It was really, really awesome time to see their participation, the smiles, and all of the efforts and things to compete in those different races and competitions. All right, round of applause. I will take them outside to give them their certificate. So we do have certificates for each of you for everything that you did that day.
Yeah. And board, just so you know, we did have a PowerPoint playing of all the images. I'll make sure you guys get that in an email, but it was a nice way to share some of the accolades and the fun events that happened that day. Thank you. So next up, I'd like to invite Adam Peterson as well as Mrs. Conrad up. We have a wonderful opportunity to recognize Adam. Just a little background of Adam. He, in the county championship, got first place in the 100, got third place in the 200 in the counties. And you think about that, that's against all the big schools. Went into districts, got first place in the 100, got first place in the 200, went to states, and got third place in the 100 and seventh place in the 200. And so proud of him. He did an amazing job representing the school district, calling us out afterwards in the interview with the states. Really proud of you, Adam. Mrs. Conrad.
Yeah, so just a little bit more about Adam. This was Adam's second year running track and field. He joined the team as a junior, which is amazing to see his times improve so much over the last year. He has put so much time and effort into it, as well as being a multi-sport athlete here at Brandywine. Adam was a soccer player. He previously wrestled, did competitive skiing on the side outside of the district, which I heard a lot about on the car ride out. But Adam represented our school district so well. He, in all of our invitationals throughout the year, he placed sixth or above in all of them. And we ran at some hard invitationals, whether that be Twin Valley, where we're competing against all levels, kids from all different schools. We also this year went down to Unionville in Chester County and was able to compete down there, where Adam was very successful. As Mr. Pottiger had said, he brought home first and third. He primarily competed in the 100-meter dash and 200-meter dash. He also filled in on relays as well when needed to support his team, which we always appreciate sometimes. And brought home first and third at the BCIA firing meet. He is a 3-time district medalist, first place medalist. He also brought home first place medal last year, and then now 2 state medals. He, again, has represented Brandywine so well, and we're so grateful for all the hard work that he put in. Adam was very reliable early on in the season when we didn't have a coach that at times. And I was filling in, and Adam was always taking charge of warm-ups and leading the team. And his teammates appreciated that as much as I did. So we're very grateful for everything he's done. And now he will be heading to St. Joe's to run track and field. So very exciting.
Congratulations. And Adam's joined with his parents this evening. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations, Adam. Good luck in college. Next up, we have another recognition. We did the recognition of our retirees during the May school board meeting, and we had one additional one, Mrs. Nancy Graber. And so I'd like to invite Miss Kelly up to share a little accolades. We have Mrs. Graber joining us, but Mrs. Graber is on vacation right now, so she is live streaming with us to hear Miss Kelly.
Hi, Beach Crew. Mrs. Graber has dedicated 34 years to teaching at Brandywine Heights Area School District. She started her career as a teacher at Long Swamp Elementary in 1989 before coming to District Topton, which is now Brandywine Heights Elementary School, where she served most of her career as a third grade teacher. She has contributed to our school environment by serving many years as third grade's team leader and volunteered her time on various district committees to support so many of our initiatives. We appreciate your dedication to the profession and wish you the best of luck in your retirement. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Nancy.
They have poppers, just so you know.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
So next up, we would like to recognize our new Heights Award winners for the month. And so we have two award winners. The first one is Mrs. Stephanie Rinda. Miss Rinda is not able to join us this evening. She is actually on vacation, but we do have her certificate here, and we'll make sure she gets this. Oh, Nancy, if you're still there, maybe not anymore, we have your placard, and we'll make sure you get that as well. Just to recognize Mrs. Rinda and why she was nominated, the nomination goes, I nominate Miss Stephanie Rinda because she taught me a lot over the years. She is also hardworking and patient. She prepares students for next year for their auditions. I'm glad she is my band teacher. So it was neat that a student had recognized her. We don't hear that too often, and a wonderful tribute to Miss Rinda. So we'll, again, make sure she gets that recognition. And then I'd like to invite Mr. Gallagher up. He is one of our high school math teachers. And so I would like to take a moment and just recognize the award the recognition for Mr. Gallagher. I'd like to nominate Mr. Frank Gallagher for the New Heights Award. Mr. Gallagher deserves this award for his commitment to providing an outstanding math education to our students. His incredible organizational skills and his constant attention to detail, coupled with his sense of humor and flexibility, contribute to his students appreciating him and succeeding in his class. Mr. Gallagher keeps his students' grades current so that other teachers and parents always know what is missing and how students are performing. He demands good note-taking skills and judges the pacing of his class based on students' understanding. He uses every single minute of his class time for instruction and practice problems, which ensures he covers the curriculum effectively. Mr. Gallagher teaches 5 different math courses and an AIM, and in each course, he pushes the students to do their best, inspires students to love math, and provides solid foundation for additional math courses. He's an exceptional teacher and deserving of this award. Congratulations.
If I can just add to that for a second, in any given day, Mr. Gallagher can teach statistics at 2 levels: introductory AP statistics, calculus BC, which is our highest level of math that's offered in the high school, as well as an algebra course. I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of knowledge to be able to deliver that to their students. And I think that Mr. Gallagher's demeanor and personality goes such a tremendously long way to that. He's instantly easy to connect with, very easygoing, and you can tell that the kids are just relaxed around him, which I think lays a foundation for all of that math, no matter how high the level. So it's a pleasure to work with him, and he's awesome for our students.
If anyone wants to take some business class, brush up. I'm sure Mr. Gallagher can do some tutoring over the summer with you. Congratulations, Frank.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Here's a little certificate and a pin.
Thank you.
You joined by your wife this evening?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
This time I'd like to open up for any public comment.
So the public comment,
Do you wanna do-
agenda items before, non-agenda items after, or use, doesn't matter.
Go for it.
Hello. Hi, my name is Philip Geiger. I'm from the Tufton Borough, and just wanted to talk to the board about the music department staffing. I had information that after Mr. Gordon's retirement this year, that there might not be a replacement in the budget for next year for that position. So I'm on the music boosters as well as the treasurer, so kind of representing that group as well, just to come and discuss it with the board, or just I appreciate Mr. Pottinger actually gave me a call today because I wasn't sure I had all the facts straight, and I know there's no easy decisions with staffing and budgets and things like that. So I knew there was certainly thought behind it, but I do appreciate him calling me to talk through it. My kids have had a great music education here at the district, and I just wanted to make sure that that was available for future students as well.
Thank you, Mr. Geiger. So if I could just take, come on up, sorry. Just if I could just take a moment and just to address that, Mr. Geiger, thank you. So in terms of the intermediate music position, Mr. Gary Gordon had been a longtime teacher with us, 40 years. It allowed us some really strong consistency. I always said the patience of a saint, teaching fourth graders and fifth graders the first time they've ever had to touch an instrument. Part of the factor of what we are evaluating, and Mr. Geiger is correct, we are looking to remove that position out of the budget. So that's kind of the rip the Band-Aid off conversation of this. But the reason for that is not because we're looking to cut the music program or to cut staffing, or because it's a financial decision that we're driven at. Let's remove the position, and we're not going to support the arts. It's really driven at a logistical decision. And so when we evaluated our school district over the course of time, we've had declining enrollment. And so the number of just regular general ed music classes that we've been teaching in the middle school has declined over time. At one point, we had 6 classes per grade level. In some cases, we're down to 4 classes per grade level. It's created a lot of holes in the music teachers' schedules. And so we have 2 of our music teachers in the middle school, our band and chorus teacher, that are doing a lot of coverages. They're covering for substitute teachers. They might be covering for lunch duties. It's one of those decisions that when a retirement comes, it's a good opportunity to just stop, reflect back, and just evaluate the program. If we would have evaluated this when we had a full complement of staff, it could have led to some things like reduction in staff and furloughs and things that are kind of nasty and we don't want to do. So this is a good opportunity to take a moment, stop, and reflect and look where we're at. When we strip all of those coverage periods out, the coverage for classes, for substitutes, for lunch duties, things like that, a typical teacher schedule, when we look at it from a cycle, we use a 6-day cycle. There are 9 periods a day. So obviously 9 times 6, there's 54 total periods a teacher can teach in a 6-day cycle. Stripping all of those coverages out, the amount of instructional periods is only 13. So there's only actually 13 instructional periods that happen within that 54 period schedule over a 6-day cycle. So it allowed us, when you calculate that out, that's really only a 25% employee. It's going to be very challenging to find a 25% employee. And so what we started to do is evaluate that. And the next steps really to this, and hence the reason for the reduction in the position. But the next step in this is to have our music teachers sit down. They're going to sit down, not this week, but the following week, the week of the 19th, and evaluate the schedule and figure out how we're going to best service the needs of the students, knowing that 4th grade is the paramount grade. That's the foundation of learning a music lesson. That's learning good habits, that's learning bad habits, but most importantly, it's learning the excitement of music and not steering a student away from that because they're discouraged or they don't have the buy-in, or it's a hodgepodge of teachers or something like that. So we are definitely keeping a close eye on this. Mr. Farina, who's going to be the new assistant to the superintendent, is going to be sitting as part of those conversations with the music teachers to address that and to go through that process. But I thought it might just be a good opportunity to give some understanding of how we got here. Again, just to reiterate, it's truly not a decision driven that we're going to reduce the arts or the music program basically because whatever narrative we might want to put in place. It's just a logistical question. It doesn't make sense to have our trained music teachers be the ones that are covering classes. Let's use them for why we hired them, to teach music. And so that's really the platform and the reason behind the decision. And so, Mr. Henry, sorry to interject before you got started, but
Information.
I thought it might just be good to give some context to the decision and really how we got here. So
Sure.
sorry, Mr. Henry.
No, thank you. That's a great explanation. So, I'm Jason Henry, Long Swamp Township. I think my 3 minutes are up, standing here for 9, I guess. But
That was my plan. Sorry.
I truly believe that school district is built on 3 pillars of arts, athletics, and academics for sure, right? You just heard some of the arts conversation that was here. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the athletic conversation. You know, watching every single meeting through the last 3 years of COVID and everything else that was done, probably one of the worst times in education that you could ever imagine. And I watched this board constantly say, how can we do it? How can we do it? They never wanted to hear how we can't do it. Okay. However, we get into an athletic situation right now. We get into looking at a situation of a plan for the future. What is the plan for the future on our athletic field? And over 2 years of that plan discussion, I've heard more reasons of how we can't do it than how we can. Okay, and that is a problem in the organizational future belief and goal and vision of what you want for this district. Let me just think, you know, the 2 latest things that I've heard from conversations is the low enrollment, which was talked about tonight, right? Well, let's address that for a minute. Okay, what do our facilities offer that want people to come here? You look outside. When I moved here, Brandywine was comparable to Northwestern, comparable to Fleetwood, comparable to Ole. They've surpassed us in facilities outside. When we look at our track and our field, we're one of the only districts in Berks County without a turf field. Okay, we might be one of the only districts in Berks and Lehigh without a turf field. And this district is centralized where people would want to move here to work in either Lehigh or Berks. But they're going to make a decision. They're going to make a decision on what they see for their child. Okay, and that decision isn't favorable right now. The other piece of this conversation that goes down to this is it's starting to look at, I want to say this in the nicest way possible, but our student athletes, you may not realize the adversity that they face when they're on that field. Students calling them names, the poverty school, you know, the school that can't afford a field, right? Those things happen athletically on that field. And if you don't believe me, go talk to your students again and ask them. Find out what things are said to them, because I could get a lot more nasty things that were said to them. I'm not going to say it here. Okay. But what I'm asking you to think about is a vision for this district that can make the community proud and can make your students proud. Something that the students can be proud of. I can tell you right now, when you had that meeting with them this year, there was an uproar. There was an uplift in your students. I heard your students talking that we might get a turf field. Do you know what? I want to challenge you to go back and tell them that you're not going to get a turf field and see what that does to them. I'm very curious. Okay. I think not having a plan for that future is a bad mistake. I think right now, if you say, oh, we'll look at it again in the future, guess what? When you look at it again in the future, I'm in the business. Your costs are going to multiply. Your planning costs are going to be more. Everything else is going to be more. And it's not going to ever get cheaper. Okay. Capital projects are something that you need to have a plan for the vision of the future, what that looks like. And yeah, you know what? Probably the company you're dealing with has some wishy-washy numbers. Yeah, every capital project you deal with has soft costs. You're going to have to deal with those soft costs and see what those soft costs will do for you. Okay. But that doesn't mean that doesn't stop your plan for the future and what that plan should be for your future or what you want for this district. You know, I had done so much homework, I could probably sit here and do a 45-minute presentation on this right now. I challenge you with a couple of things. Number one, you're going to be approving a budget tonight. What is that budget per student? And look across the district, look across the state, look anywhere and see what that dollar number is per student up against anyone else. And then tell me that we can't figure out how to get enough money to do what we need to do to plan for the future. Okay. I know you talk about fund balance and the safety of fund balance. I am a huge believer in fund balance. I know what it is, but I also know that you can loan against it and figure out how to make projects like this work. Okay. The other pieces of this is you want to go down, talk to St. Luke's. Why don't you go talk to St. Luke's and talk about the injuries that are saved on turf fields and why every other district around the area have made the decisions to go to turf fields. Okay. I have a lot of emotion in this. I know it will probably never happen for my children. I'm not sitting up here speaking for my children. I'm sitting up here speaking because it's the right thing to do. And if you don't have a plan, it's never going to happen. And that's where I struggle with what I have heard recently about putting a synthetic track in with a nice grass field. That's not a plan for the future. Okay. And the last thing I'll say to you is whatever you decide, whatever your plan is for the future, be honest with those children. Go back to that high school, go back to that middle school, go back to those kids that you surveyed and tell them what your plan is for the future because they deserve that. Thank you.
I came across a Sunday paper for a recent Red Eagle academic piece, and I don't know that in front of this audience it's been shared yet.
But we had a handful of Brandywine students who made Berks Best. And that's nothing to be shy about. So if it hasn't already been communicated, may I take a minute to recognize those handful of students? I don't know these kids. I wish I did, because it seems like they're pretty darn talented. So London Cerullo, and I think these are all graduated seniors. So London Cerullo earned Berks Best across the county in business. Jake Deisher, which we've met as being a wrestler, if I'm not mistaken, was a finalist for computer science for Berks Best. Jade Hartline made finalist. She was one of 4 finalists for science. And finally, and I hope I'm not missing any, these were just the photos that I noticed. Tatiana Ullman, our own board representative, made Berks Best finalist, one of 3 finalists across the county in world language. So I wanted to take an extra minute just to recognize these young people for their academics, for their community service, for taking the time to write out these applications, and the staff who supported them by writing recommendation letters and helping them achieve what they've been able to achieve. So congratulations to these 4 students and all the other graduating seniors who qualified for Berks Best.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Hume. Board of Directors report. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
Seconded,
Mr. Pottinger?
A few items on the Board of Directors report this evening. One, we have the meeting of the minutes from May 1st. Any additions or corrections that need to be made to those? None heard, those will continue. We have the second reading policies under B. Now, those policies were presented last month at the May meeting. If there's no significant changes, I had not received any updates. Those will stand and then will be approved as board policies moving forward for the school district. We have first reading policies this evening. Those are presented to the board for a first review, and then will be officially reviewed and committed for the August board meeting. There are a few I just want to go over here. the first couple ones, the student discipline one, I just wanted to make a note of that in that policy on the second page, there's some adjustments that were made, particularly to the off-campus activities. There was a whole bunch of enumerated reasons or what justifies a off the campus activity. We simplified that in looking at best practice of other policies and really condensed that into a one-line policy change there. Likewise, under guidelines, we made there was 2 notifications. There was a notification for law enforcement that still exists, and then we added a notification for parent and guardians. That way, it's clearly laid out the process for notifying parents as well as law enforcement if there would be a controlled substance issue within the school district. So that's the changes in that policy, or the recommended changes. Under the student discipline policy, there is a section in there on page 2, and that focuses on and off campus activities. That section was not included in our previous policy, and so we added those items to go through what is actually included and what do we deem as on and off campus activities as it relates to student discipline. And so that's a change that is made there. It is a paragraph that was added in that section. And then the final one I'd like to just point out is our community 900 community policy, and that is related to relations and with educational institutions 912. This is an interesting policy. It talks about sending students to our students that are leaving and going to another school district. Talks about students that are coming to our school district. It talks about relations with institutions of higher learning. And in that area particularly, we added one more number to the very last section of that policy, and that connects to dual enrollment. So we have a dual enrollment agreements, and the state came out with as part of the budget process that you have to have, as part of school code now, a relationship with a dual enrollment provider. We have several. In fact, we have 4 of them, but this is just codifies it within our policy to match what's in the school code. So we just wanted to make sure that there is a reflection of that in our policy. That's really the highlights. The others are just really minimal, minor wording changes for the rest of those policies. Any questions on that? Yeah.
So just in terms of student discipline, is there anything specifically, it's not jumping out at me, in terms of we're seeing a lot of heightened behaviors that are more sexually driven, and in terms of like sexual harassment towards each other, even to teachers, is there anything specifically in the student discipline or in our policies that are addressing that now that that's becoming more and more prevalent?
It's actually it's not in the discipline policy.
Okay.
It's actually a whole separate standalone
Section.
policy.
Okay.
There used to be one for harassment, sexual harassment,
Okay.
and then that morphed into the name just let me. Thank you.
So
wrongful
we
and
still have the right to discipline them
absolutely.
for those kinds of behaviors.
It's actually
it just
spelled
doesn't
out.
necessarily fall under this policy.
It's spelled out, and it's in the
More
200
specifically.
sections.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Good question. If there's no other questions about policies, we do have to discuss the Pennsylvania School Boards Association event that happens in the fall. We have delegates. I think Laura and Alexis, you've done that in the past. I'm not sure. They asked for 2 board representatives. I'm not sure if the 2 of you want to go. If there's any other interest from other school board members that would like to do that. It is virtual. It continues to be virtual if you would be interested in that. Yes?
Ms. Wallinger, still interested? Perfect. Thank you.
So we'll fill in Mrs. Eisenhart and Mrs. Walliser there. Thank you, ladies. And then we have a memorandum of understanding with the Pennsylvania State Police. So every 2 years, as part of the school code requirement, you have to have a memorandum of understanding with the law enforcement. So last year, we actually approved one with the Fleetwood Police because we also are serviced by the Fleetwood Police. And our 2 years cycle is up for the Pennsylvania State Police. So that they're off cycle, unfortunately, but this is the approval of the State Police Memorandum of Understanding. It outlines essentially 2 main pieces. One, what are those infractions when you talk about student discipline, Mrs. Walzer? What are those infractions that we have to report by law to the state police or the local police Fleetwood? And what are those ones that there's some leeway from the school district perspective of you don't have to report just depending on the severity of the infraction? That's what is really outlined in that MOU. And it's a good guide for us as we deal with different discipline issues. And then the final thing here is to ratify an agreement with East Penn Manufacturing. This is the third agreement where we're extending that agreement of sale. This one will last through June 30th, 2023, as some final paperwork pieces get modified at the Longswamp Township township meeting tomorrow night, and then on our end between the two agencies, the school district and East Penn Manufacturing. But that would be when that all occurs to purchase 18.9 acres of land next to the high school.
Thank you. Moving on to committee reports. Excuse me. BCIU, Mrs. Hume.
Hi, good evening. The meeting was held as it's described in the written report that I submitted. And frankly, I don't have anything extra special to highlight this month other than what's documented there.
Thank you very much. BCTC, Mr. Sheets.
BCTC, there we go. BCTC met on May 24th at the East Campus. We recognized senior achievements that evening. Other item of note is that we passed our budget. All the sending districts voted. We only had one vote against, which was just kind of a rando. That's the first time that's happened since I've been there. Our next meeting will be the 28th at the West Campus. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Berkshire Income Tax Bureau. Still Greco?
Yeah, so I have nothing to report except that the next meeting will be virtual on Thursday, June 29th.
Thank you. Council on Legislation Action, Mrs. Walliser.
I don't have anything new to report. I don't know if Andrew does either.
All right, the floor is still yours for Policy Committee.
Nothing to report.
All righty. Strategic Planning and Goals, Mrs. Eisenhart.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Negotiation and Compensation Committee. Mr. Sheets, Mrs. Eisenhart.
Do you want me to do it? I'll take it. Confirm, Ms. Delacarico, we put the Act 93, correct? Okay. So only item of note is that you will see on your agenda in the personnel report we have for the Act 93 agreement. There's no changes to the Act 93 agreement other than the date. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Building Construction Committee.
The update for the building construction meeting is that there is a meeting with the building construction committee that's going to occur on June 26th, and that's to continue the planning process of the high school facilities.
Thank you. Any additional comments, questions? Hearing none, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Eisenhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Hollingshead?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim?
Yes.
Mr. Reitauer?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser? Yes. Mr. Wagman?
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Wagman, quick suggestion. So the committee reports link there is clickable. And since we have an audience, maybe in the future, while we do our committee reports, it'd be wise to open that document that we referred to and let the audience kind of see what we're scrolling through.
Very good suggestion. Business and Operations Report. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved. Sheets.
Second right now.
Good evening, everyone. This evening we have the rather lengthy Business and Operations Report. We will start off with the bills list as well as the financial reports. You'll see the bills items A through D for each fund through this evening. And we also have the financial reports item E through April. Just an item to note for the newer board members. This is basically our last pre-summer meeting. Our next meeting will be August. So in August, you will see the May final reports. And also you'll see an interim June report, which will not be complete the final June will actually come at completion of the audit. So moving on to special ed pupil services, the first item we have to approve an agreement with Ole Valley School District for 2 of our students to participate in the agricultural program for 23-24 per business item F1. This is an agreement that we've had for the last several years, and next year we have 2 students that are currently going to participate. So for item 2 is to approve an agreement with Bucksmont Academy for a district student for the 23-24 school year at a cost of $222.78 per day. The next one, again, these are more student agreements. It's approve an agreement with Capstone Academy for ESY for a district student at a cost of $11,768.25. The next one is to approve a tuition agreement with Valley Forge Educational Services for the 23-24 school year for a student at an annual tuition cost of $80,500. And items 5 and 6, they sort of go hand in hand. Item 5 is to actually approve the Act 48 program agreement. You'll see there is actually no cost, but it does reference to item 6 is to approve the contract for services. Currently, we have no student for the 23-24 school year, and these are both for River Rock Academy. And you'll see the per diem rate for the services that we would utilize is $217.22, and also $238.94. So the next one, this is something we've typically done a 3-year agreement. So that had expired. So we go out, reach out to local dental offices, and essentially solicit proposals for dental services for our students. So we are approving Schumann and Schwab. They will be changing their name to White Oak Dentistry to provide dental examinations for the next 3 years at a rate of $5. We have had a longstanding partnership with them. As you can imagine, it's hard to get dental offices to come in and provide the service for $5 per student. Item 8 is to approve an agreement with Therapy Source for speech language pathology services for the 23-24 school year at an hourly rate of $79. We do project that to be about $85,000. Item 9 is to approve an agreement for special ed services for the 23-24 school year with the BCIU. As determined by classification, you'll see in the attachment there is a list of plethora of services that we could utilize. For the most part, you'll see a dollar increase here and there from the prior year. Some actually decreased, but overall, they're nominal changes depending on which avenue we go. So the next one, this is actually new. This is to approve an agreement with LinkedIn Literacy for structured literacy instruction in person and virtual using Wilson Reading Systems and or Orton Gillingham for the 23-24 school year. So then we move on to curriculum technology. The next couple are related to our virtual academy. So item 1 and 2 are to approve agreements with Imagine Learning, also known as Ingenuity, for the 23-24 school years, as well as the summer program. You'll see that there was a slight increase in costs in some areas, as well as no change in costs in others. Item 3 is, again, virtual academy, to approve an agreement with Accelerate Education for the 23-24 school year. Item 4 is, again, we've been part of this consortium for several years now to approve a continued participation in the Berks County Education Technology Pool Council Consortium to share consulting services provided by Sweet Stevens. And there's no change in cost there. So moving on to facilities maintenance. We do this annually. We call it our red tag yard sale. It is to approve the list of unneeded, unnecessary equipment and to authorize the administration to recycle, sell, dispose of items as per business H1. That date has yet to be determined, but we will communicate it out to the community when we have set that date. So the next item number 2, there's two food service and repair quotes as attached. The one is for Longacre for commercial food service refrigeration equipment, and the other one is for K&D factory service on food service equipment for the 23-24 school year. And you'll see in the attachments that Mr. Wetzel, Director of Building and Grounds, does reach out to several vendors just to get comparative quotes, just to ensure we're getting the best price. Number 3 is to approve the engineering proposal from Acela Architects and Engineers of Allentown for the following projects. The ISMS bus canopy column repairs. This is part of our multi-year long-term planning capital projects. So they are going to do the engineering at a cost of $10,800. So the next one is to approve a proposal with Kelso Solutions of East Berlin for replacing the filters, gaskets, and re-inspecting the high school dust collector at a total cost of $4,600. So I actually personally had a question on this earlier, so I reached out to Mr. Wetzel. So these, if you look at the attachment, this is actually essentially almost a repair and maintenance. So SSI actually does our annual maintenance and inspection. So they had proposed some changes and they actually referred us to Kelso. So that's kind of the background on that one. Item 5 is to approve the proposal with Penneco Excavating of Fleetwood to repair concrete sidewalks at a cost of $14,910. The next one, this is something we participate in annually, is to approve the 23-24 bid awards for the BCIU custodial supplies bid. And the next one, we have a longstanding partnership with them, but we are approving a 5-year sprinkler inspection and associated repairs contract with Johnson Controls at a cost of $20,251.02. Item I is to approve a 1-year service agreement with ARC Point Labs. They do our drug and alcohol screening for new hires. They are connected with Quest Diagnostics in accordance with Board Policy 354, retroactive. This is a $10 increase from the prior price, but overall it's a $12 increase since we've been a partner with them since 2019. We have reached out to other local vendors that provide similar services. So should things change or we find a better price, we would ask for your approval at that time. The next one is to approve an addendum to a current contract that we have with Substitute Teacher Services dated March 16th of 2023 through June of 24. Essentially, the only change is we are adding a certified school nurse position. This is so any of our retired school nurses would be able to come back and work on their behalf. So next one, we're kind of starting to get into the budget piece. Item L is to authorize the business manager to release disbursements for expenditures from the 22-23 school year, normally held into the board meeting until August. So we're just asking you if you could ratify them in the meantime, and we can continue to pay our vendors on timely. M is sort of an attack.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
I think we missed K. Just mention that.
Oh, totally missed K. Yep. So it's an important one. So item K is to approve the purchase of 3 Subaru Ascent SUVs at a cost of $36,102 each as attached for the 7-passenger RFP that was due on May 12th. So a little bit of background on that for those of you who do not remember. We did have to go out to bid for new or used vans and also 7-passenger SUVs because there is essentially a 9-passenger van shortage. Ford was essentially the last manufacturer and they have since then discontinued. So you can buy cargo vans and get them upfitted, but that's about $80,000 per vehicle. So the other option was to get the 7-passenger vans. The best response we got was from Subaru. So we're asking your approval to move forward with 3 vehicles. If you remember the budget vehicle cycle that we presented back, I believe it was in March, we did have money set aside for either a new van or a vehicle or a maintenance truck. So we're proposing moving forward with this route, continue to transport, individual students or, teachers taking kids somewhere. This will help alleviate a lot of the need to get those one-off trips that we've struggled with this year. So then kind of shifting back to the budget side is to authorize the business manager to make 22-23 budget transfers after June 30th as required to prevent year-end over expenditure of sub-function object account codes. This is required by PDE. Item O is to appoint the Berks County Earned Income Tax Bureau as the 23-24 earned income tax collector per the agreement. And then we're acknowledging our tax collectors. Item P is to appoint the Berks County Tax Claim Bureau as the district's 23-24 delinquent real estate tax collector for a commission of 5% of collections if paid by the taxpayer within 31 days. Taxpayers are responsible for the 5% commission if paid after 31 days. So essentially what happens if for the individuals who have not paid by the penalty deadline of December 31st, the tax collectors on our behalf turn them over to the county, and they are essentially the delinquent tax collectors. Questions have arose if we would have somebody else do it, we would ultimately still have to pay the county the 5%. Just some background knowledge should anybody ask that question. Item Q is to appoint Lorraine Meck, Thomas Biltcliffe, Angela Tyson, and Molly Pry as our delinquent per capita tax collectors for a fee of $1.65 per bill, plus a commission of 5%. And then we get into item R. This is the general fund final budget, and I'm just going to take a moment to stop here. As you will see, for the board members, you do have a handout for this evening. We have, throughout the entire budget process, we've tracked changes, but also high-level summaries. So you can see those toward the back. But I do want to touch on the first two pieces, whether you're out in the community, people ask, questions regarding the budget, kind of like what were those big impact points, good or bad, like a significant increase in costs or, a significant savings, or, we're proposing increase in taxes by 1.5%, but where essentially was that shortfall, say at the state level, or seeing a decrease as you look on your sheet, real estate transfer taxes we're projecting going down 50,000. So this is for really you as a guide, should you be asked any questions, but these are really the high level pieces. And also essentially on the expense side, aside from the revenues, charter school tuition costs, the impact of our health insurance. You'll see that we had the 8.75% premium increase per employee that was passed on. But overall, that was an increase of $360,000. So that's significant to our budget. But these are some items to keep in mind. Really, essentially, the really good positives or the pain points of the budget. And then on the next page, if you just want to take a look, this is really, there was a lot of changes. There was a lot of retirements, a lot of shifting of staff, a lot of reevaluation of logistics with staff. Can we combine people here or kind of reassess this position? So here's kind of a high level overview of the staff assignments that have changed from the current year going into next year. So you can see that all those were essentially tracked. We have talked about them throughout the budget process, but they're kind of all in one spot for you to look at as well. So with that, I'm going to kind of move into item R. Similar to the proposed final budget, we are proposing a 1.5 real estate tax increase of 0.531 mils to a total of 35.9844. Per the attachment, the total budget would be $35,933 and $387. And then the question would be, how does that affect, per household or per parcel? So just for your knowledge, the median assessed value is $107,000, $255.12. So to the average taxpayer per parcel, that would be a proposed increase of $57.04. So item 2 is to approve the proposed tax resolutions as attached and marked. These get into essentially the residents, the per capita tax. It also gets into the earned income tax and the real estate transfer tax. Essentially, when someone moves, buys a home, we get the 1% when they close. So that's those. And then item 3, this is the homestead farmstead resolution that provides a maximum of $295.47. A real estate tax reduction for approved homestead and farmsteads funded by gambling tax funds, Philadelphia tax credits, and over and unders from prior year. So that total is $990,148.19 as attached. So essentially that will decrease the assessed value of the individual's home and also offset their tax bill by $295. So for most of our families within the district, that is their primary residence. The chances are they have the homestead exclusion on their house, so that will also help decrease their tax rate. So item 4, no action required on this, but it is a reminder that the board approved a resolution on June 4th of 2012, providing an option for installment payments of real estate taxes per attachment. So individuals and businesses have the option to pay within 3 installments at no penalty, August, October, and December. The next one, we typically finalize the numbers at the audit, but it authorizes the business manager designee to assign fund balances as needed to balance the net of revenue and expenditures in the 22-23 fiscal year. The amount, if any, will be determined at the completion of the audit process. So I'm going to stop there. And if anybody has any questions, I can answer them now in relation to the budget. Okay, so no questions. All right, so I will move on to item S, is to approve the reassignment of the existing Brandywine Transportation contract. We have 2 years left to Christ Transportation Incorporated per Business S. And I do want to note that this is subject to solicitor approval, but also highlight that all contractual rates, terms, and conditions will remain the same. So item T is to approve the 23-24 school breakfast and lunch meal price. Just to note, there is no changes in the pricing. I do want to point out that I believe this is probably going to be the final year that the USDA has issued a memo saying that if you have a positive balance in your food service fund, which is supposed to be a nonprofit, you can waive the requirement to establish lunch prices in accordance with the Richard Russell Natural School Act. So essentially that's saying is if you have a surplus, which we currently have about $500,000 because of the increased subsidy in the grants that we had during COVID. And they are aware that majority of districts have this surplus. So we have to spend it down essentially. So they're allowing us to essentially not pass the increased food costs onto our households. So essentially next year we will probably have to use a little bit of that surplus. I am projecting a slight loss when I do the revenues for. So that'll help spend down some of that money within reason. So that is that waiver. It's basically the last year of the COVID relief. So the next one is to approve the 23-24 food service budget in the amount of $772,623.28. And that's all I have.
That was it?
Yeah. 7:30.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Wagman, I have just a couple of quick questions. Thank you, Nicole. On item F8, which is the one about speech language services, I think it was an $80,000 expenditure roughly. Can either you or maybe Mrs. Kirshner help us with the scope? How many students and maybe what the stratification is across the district? Is it primarily elementary or is it all across?
Is he in person or is this a virtual in person? Okay.
So he's almost like them.
And just for the edification of those that might be listening, the answer to that, because you probably didn't hear Mrs. Kircher, is that that service is for our speech students in the secondary level in grades 4 to 12. And the reason for that is we had a speech teacher that was a teaching speaker, but is now teaching special education with our students. And so it provides closes the gap and still provides those services for our students.
While we're on the special ed, do you mind if I ask her one more question? Okay. The LinkedIn Literacy LLC for structured literacy instruction, can you?
So we have a student that's returning, and that student needs to be evaluated. So to determine that evaluation, we don't provide for that evaluation. So in order to fulfill that, we need to determine whether or not moving forward, we need to provide those services. We need to outsource through that, because the whole BCA does not provide that either. They don't have to certified, and our schools that help us are not certified in that program. We have evaluation. So after that evaluation happens, then we will take a look at next steps with that.
Okay.
Couple other, just real quick. So H number 3, which is the Acela Architects, about 10,800, if I'm doing this from memory right, for an engineering support, to help us figure out what to do with the bus canopy column repairs. So can you remind everybody what exactly is wrong with our bus canopy columns? And then what is the projected expense for the project if the engineering alone is 10 or 11 grand?
So the right now there are steel I-beams or steel columns that go down into the ground.
This is this building?
This building. So that big bus canopy, when you pull in, it's actually quite a long canopy. It runs the whole length. What's happening is where those meet the ground, just because of age over time, they're starting to rust to the point where there's actually like gaps in the metal. And so it's not at the point of being a significant concern, but it's something we'd absolutely need to address. And so we received this architect and engineering firm through the other partnering company that we just hired to map out the intermediate middle school and to do some work out there at the stadium. He recommended this company as a structural engineer to evaluate that. And so they're going to map that out, develop the RFP for us, walk through the RFP process for us, and then the estimated cost, we're going to base it off of, there's, and I forgive me, it's either 6 or 8 columns right at the entranceway as the primary, and then also have an alternate to do all the columns. And the idea is that we would, to save some money, basically cut them off about 3 feet up, and then put cement pillars down into the ground. So the cement pillars will be the what is now connected to the ground, so that it's not metal on the concrete, and kind of eliminate that rust concern, but still maintain the steel that's there, so you're not having to redo the entire bus canopy. It's kind of finding the middle ground. So the estimated cost is really, it's 2-part, because we want to see what this first 8 are, and then if we can do all of them, let's do all of them if we can afford it.
What do we have budgeted for that project?
So we had actually looked at this initially when we went out for the ESCO project. That was kind of one of our items, and it's also in our capital projects long-term plan. For the project itself, we have about 60,000.
The Subaru vans. So that's item K for folks following along. The Subaru vans. So again, we're getting 3 of them. Remind us again, those 3 new vehicles are replacing 3 from our existing fleet. And I'm sure you've provided this during the budget conversations and previously, but if you can just remind us, what are like the years and conditions of those 3 vehicles? How are they deployed today? And is that our plan, just to swap out old for new, or are we going to reshuffle things around?
So it's actually going to essentially place at least one van, which is 9 passengers. It has over 100,000 miles. It's used for students. So that was actually in the replacement cycle. Initially, when we had proposed this, we had in the cycle to replace a truck, which is about anywhere from 60 to 80,000, all said and done. But as you know, with transportation this year, we've had a lot of issues. One, getting van drivers, but also not having enough vans either for sports shuttles, or kids are going on trips, or they just need to go, to various schools, or one-off pickups, I guess, and replace our transportation contractor. And this is essentially one, replacing the van that we have, but also, I guess, offsetting costs that we would utilize our contractor for. And then we've also had a lot of, whether it be teachers, whether it be athletic staff, essentially shuttling kids back and forth. So that's what the need is. But on paper, it's just replacing one, but then also contractor costs. So to help offset those.
So replacing one, which means 2 of these 3 are new to our
Correct.
fleet?
Yep.
Wow. I'm not sure I understood that. Okay. So I'm just curious. I know we've had challenges in transportation, but further down this agenda, we're being asked to support the recommendation to transfer the contract from Brandywine to Christ. I may be saying that wrong, so please correct me if that's not how you pronounce it. But we were at some level promised or encouraged that those types of problems would be managed through in a reasonable period of time, which the way I understand it means that we shouldn't need our own vehicles, because the contract that is in place with this new provider, assuming they honor their contract, it should be covered. So is it critical that we're getting these 2 brand new vehicles added to our fleet now? Or is it something that you're budgeting for and then you won't necessarily purchase for a while, but you're earmarking the funds perhaps?
So it's twofold. One, it's a reaction to what happened this past year. Now we are going to go into a new contract. The other piece of that is not just to think daily transportation, but to think extracurriculars. And Ms. Delguergo had mentioned that reduction of more of those extracurricular runs and our sports runs and things like that. In some ways, it makes more financial sense for us to have our own fleet and have our coaches drive the vans, or in this case, the new SUVs, because of the number of kids on the team. And so if we can have our own vehicles running and the coach having a little bit more control to be able to get in and out as they need, it's a little bit more cost advantageous than having the company come in with their vehicle and their costs for their employee to sit there for the drive plus the length of the game and then come back. And so it gives our staff flexibility. It saves money and kind of creates that, knowing that finding drivers for those extracurricular runs has been very challenging. So that's kind of the double-edged sword of it.
I appreciate that explanation. And I know we've had challenges, and those challenges impact staff, coaches, and students. And so it's critical to get the right solution in place. I just wonder, though, if long-term it makes sense for us to add to our own in-house fleet when we have declining enrollment. So we've used that in a number of places as a reason to be able to scale down a little bit. And yet here we're signing up to scale up our vehicle fleet. And, I always say we're in the business of educating students. So I understand extracurriculars are certainly part of that. And to make that happen effectively, maybe we do need these 2 additional vehicles. But I would just ask you to monitor, obviously, the contract with this new company. And if we can get out of the driving business, I think that's smart. I don't think our coaches should have the responsibility, or our teachers should have the responsibility for driving our students around. I know we have liability insurance and all that kind of stuff, but just personally, that's a big personal responsibility and probably stressor. So
we can monitor it, and as we all know, the car market right now, we can sell. If we decided everything's great, we do not need that. But I think it's to go into the school year without this would be setting ourselves up for failure. And I think it's really important to invest in this now.
okay, thank you for that. And then with the support of the rest of the board, I'd encourage us to pull out item R, which is the budget vote, and just vote on that separately, please.
So we're okay with that? Yes.
Yep. Any additional questions, comments?
Nicole, what is the cost to send the 2 students to Ole for the ag program?
Yeah, so that's actually a good question. So essentially, when we do any partnerships with neighboring districts and they attend a different district, the state actually determines what we pay hold on one second, let me get up to where it is. So they actually approve or essentially certify a tuition rate based on our AFR and what they deem are different functions within the budget that cost to educate the students. So essentially for next year, we are going to go off the tuition rate that they just certified last month. And that is, it's about 17,000. Yeah. So it's going to be a total of 35,000. So it's $17,249. So when the state does it, they do not do it like charter schools where you have regular ed, special ed. They actually do it from elementary versus secondary. So these will be 2 secondary students. So it's essentially 17,000. From prior year, the increase is about $200.
17,000 per student.
Correct.
Okay.
Any additional comments, questions? Hearing none, can I get a roll call on all items except for letter R?
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Honcho?
Yes.
Mrs. Yan?
Yes.
Mr. Reitnauer?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Students?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Esmart?
Yes.
Mr. Wagman?
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
All right. Now can I get a roll call for letter R?
Mr. Honcho?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Reitnauer?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Students?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Esmart?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffner?
Yes.
Mr. Wagman?
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you. Superintendent's report. Can I get a motion in a second, please?
Sheets.
Second right now.
May I interrupt and make a quick comment? I just want to thank Ms. Del Guerico and her team for all of the work that they did on this year's budget. It's yeoman's work. It's not easy. It's challenging. It's digging into a lot of details. It's fielding a lot of questions. It's preparing a lot of presentations. So thank you for that. We had a great audit earlier this year, and now we've passed a budget that keeps us below 36 million, below 36 mil. It's still not great across the county, but you're doing a great job. So thank you for all your hard work and dedication. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I would have to thank all my colleagues here. Obviously, they have their own department, so they're very instrumental in kind of building a single budget, but it's a lot of work together. So.
Thank you, team.
Couple items under superintendent report. We have the second reading of the comprehensive plan. We have presented this to you before. There's a 28-day waiting period that has to happen for public review until the board approves it. That has been satisfied, and so we're asking for your commitment to this comprehensive plan. This rolls into our annual goals that we had talked about with the goals committee, and Mrs. Eisenhart and I will meet and start evaluating district goals and then present that to the board at the August meeting, but this is all part of that process. Item B is the list of graduates. There were 114 graduates this year. Currently, just as we've been talking about decline enrollment tonight, I guess it's the theme, but there are 80 kindergarten students enrolled. So that kind of gives you the delta of this is why we have the decline enrollment. This was the biggest class in our K-12 that graduated with 114. So we're going to continue to see that shrink over time. Item C is to authorize the superintendent to make employment commitments over the summer. Essentially what that does is the board is the official ones that can hire staff, but what the appointment commitment does for ourselves as a district is as hires happen, we don't have to wait until August until the next school board meeting to make those hires. That way we don't have any risk of losing somebody. So by you approving this, when we interview a candidate and it gets to my level, I can make that commitment, and then officially they become a school employee, and then we'll ratify that at the meeting in August. So I appreciate that flexibility, and it helps tremendously with locking in staff. D is to adopt the new mathematics textbooks, K-12, and that is with the Envision series. We have Envision now. There's an updated version, and so we're going to continue with that series of textbooks that mirrors our curriculum. And then item E is a dual enrollment agreement. We talked about dual enrollment with our policies. RAC is one of those dual enrollment providers. It's actually our biggest one, and this is the agreement with RAC for the 23-24 school year. Any questions on the superintendent report?
One quick question around the graduates. So we graduated 114. On the enrollment report, our class of 2023 12th graders had 124. So what is the delta? What's driving that?
Mr. Jins, I'm going to call on you to help me out with that.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So in the enrollment report, it's specifies 124 graduates. We graduated 114, so obviously a delta of 10. We have a few students I know that we're working through to get some final requirements.
There's a couple of things that happen there. One is we do have some students that are special education students that will continue their education beyond sometimes come back. And there's towards the end of the year, there's often a couple students that will make those decisions back and forth. So we had a few students that were originally in the enrollment report intending to leave this year and receive their diplomas, but have chosen to come back and continue their education so that they will receive their services. That's about 5-6 students. And then as Mr. Potter alluded, we do in our senior class, there are a few students that were close to finishing, but didn't get a chance to enroll in their credits. So then in that case, the option is they have some rounds to get some of those credits back so that we can provide them a diploma where they can again return to the fall. Again, that option's are open and we can have those conversations as to whether or not they want to continue so that they can finish over the summer. We can provide them their diploma, or they can come back depending on the course, how big that deficit is. It's different for every student. We have some students that are obviously within a course or two, and some that might have a little bit more.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing.
Any additional questions, comments? Hearing none, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Reitnauer,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stevitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschildt,
Yes.
Mr. Wagman,
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you. Personnel report. Can I get a motion in a second?
So move Sheets. Second.
Thank you.
The final section of the evening, personnel reports. I just want to go through a couple items with you. We have a few resignations and retirements. Mrs. Novakovich is going to be resigning from the elementary school, spend time with her family. We recognize Mrs. Nancy Graber this evening as after 34 years of service to the school district as an elementary teacher. Mrs. Nar is going to be resigning as a business office specialist, again, for more family reasons. And then Mrs. Lasevich, who is our chemistry teacher at the high school, similarly will be resigning and taking a different position out of state due to some family commitments. So those are the resignations. When we look at it from a change of staff, we're looking to change of assignment for Mrs. Nicole Cognac. She has been our computer teacher here in the middle school. We're going to transition her to high school business teacher. She's going to be taking the spot of Mrs. Moore, who's been our business teacher for several years. So that's the change there in the connection. Mrs. Paige Kowaleski will become the full-time transportation coordinator. So that is that change there. Under appointments, we have some professional staff. We have the appointment of Mrs. Amanda Kraus, who will be our school nurse, taking the place of Dawn Schwank as she retires. We have the appointment of Mrs. Angela Kemp, who is going to be our autistic support teacher. She's currently servicing as a long-term sub and joined us mid-year. And so this will be now converting it to a contract. She's joining us as a seasoned teacher from the Allentown School District. We also have the appointment of Miss Gazarowski. She is going to be joining us as the elementary behavior support teacher. Just as a reminder, that's that new classroom we started this year during the budget process. And the reason we're starting that is we were looking at some potential of out-of-district placements at the elementary school, and this was a way to provide those services within the school district. Amanda joins us from Kutztown University, a recent graduate, and she did a lot of her student teaching in Boyertown and really impressed the staff during the interview process. We also have the appointment of Mrs. Bates. Mrs. Bates was filling in for Mrs. Worsing this year as a sabbatical. She is now going to be taking the place of Mrs. Solenberger, who was a half-time Spanish teacher, and so she will be backfilling for Mrs. Solenberger. We have Miss Madonna, who is going to be joining our team as the elementary second grade teacher. She is going to be the replacement for Mrs. Nancy Graber with the retirement. We also have the appointment of Dr. Price. Dr. Price is going to be our pre-K counts teacher. She is going to be she was the pre-K counts teacher through the BCIU last year. And so it's great to be able to keep her on staff. She is that job is pending the pre-K counts grant funding, and we should find that out once the budget is approved. We have the appointment of Mr. Ryan Noggle. He is going to be our K-8 technology teacher. He is going to be the replacement for Mrs. Karen Krumnacher. And Ryan is with us this evening. Ryan? Hello. We're really excited to have him join us, full of energy. He's going to bring a spark to the computer classes as we look at that K-8 program. So welcome, and thank you for joining us, Ryan. We have the approval of Camp Spark program staff. Just a reminder, Camp Spark is being funded through the ESSER grant, the remainder ESSER grant dollars, as well as a United Way grant we received. So I thank you to the United Way for supporting this program. And here is a list of staff. We partnered Camp Spark with our ESY Extended School Year Special Education Program so that we can really create a robust program for all our students and service their needs over the summer. We also have some student support staff. There are 4 students on here, but we have 10 students in total that you had approved 6 previously. So we have 10 students that are working with the district for summer workers over the summer, which is a great opportunity. Seasonal painter, we have 1 seasonal painter you had approved last meeting, and then 3 additional ones. Previously, what we had done was contracted painting services, which became costly and very hard to find contractors for painting. And so we tried this route, and we're very successful with finding staff. And so we're excited to put a painting plan in place for the first time and really do it at a cost-effective manner as well. We have some appointments of some support staff. We have Miss Amy Adams, who's going to be joining us as the secretary to the elementary school. Mrs. Kirsty Fritsch, who's going to be joining us as the 10-month elementary attendance secretary. We also have the appointment of Miss Emily Netterville, who's going to be joining us as the assistant to the athletic director. She is joining us from Spooky Nook as the customer service staff member, lead at Spooky Nook. And so we're excited to bring her into the athletic department. We also have the approval of 2 job descriptions and the creation of 2 jobs. One is an access secretary, so that would work within the Director of Pupil Services Department. And it's that by creating that position, it is actually offset and funded through grant funding through Access federal grants. So that is how that position gets paid for, which is a great way to add some staff, but also have it essentially be cost neutral. And then the other one is to approve the food service secretary position. We had talked about that resignation earlier. So we're going to combine food service and registration as that role. But that was a position that was already in place. Just a little bit of a change in dynamics there. We have some long-term subs. These 4 long-term subs are ESSER funded positions. So essentially either funded by ESSER roles or placeholders for someone else that's in an ESSER role. We have the co-curricular appointments this evening for the fall coaches. There are still some remaining positions that are open there, primarily middle school coaches and head coaches, but there are a few assistant high school positions open as well. We will continue to advertise that over the summer with Mrs. Conrad as we look to fill those roles. We have a support staff substitute listed here as Mrs. Ruth. We have 3 leaves. 2 are maternity leave. One is a special education. The second one is for one of our administrators, and then the third one is a medical leave for one of our high school staff members. Item F is the grant tenure for 2 staff members. You may notice that one of these staff members, Mrs. Lasevich, we just talked about the resignation and she was going to be moving to another state. The way tenure works is it's based off of a timeline and so many observations, positive observations. And so Mrs. Lasevich, at the end of this school year, which she did complete with us, met those requirements, and so that's why we would be granting her tenure. It is something that would carry with her to different school districts, as well as Mrs. Caitlin Werman, both phenomenal teachers, and she is currently one of our first grade teachers, and again, a great asset to our team. We have the approval of some additional days. This allows key employees to do work over the summer to help prepare for the start of the school year. So you can see that school psychologists and then guidance counselors provides them a little additional time. We give the approval of salaries for our administrators, managers, support staff. That list of salaries is something we ask the board to approve every year. We have the approval of my rating as superintendent, and I greatly appreciate the board's continued support. It is an honor to work in this school district to lead this school district and to work with the 9 of you as school board members. And I greatly appreciate your support and our ability to work together to help grow our community. And as we heard this evening, some questions that have come from our community members, and we're going to continue to work through those and do the best we can to build a great program for our students, which is the most important thing. Item 5 is is that my cue that I'm done? Item 5 is the approval of substitute rates. Item 6 is the approval of starting rates for staff. The only one I'd like to point here is that our secretary's rate, we're asking to approve to move from $15 an hour to $16 an hour as to try to stay pace with the market. We also have the approval of the Act 93 compensation plan. So this is essentially is the agreement between the board and the Act 93 group. As mentioned earlier from Mr. Sheets' report, there's no substantive changes to this. It's essentially a date change. It's a 1-year agreement. We have the approval of employee handbooks. Annually, we like to approve these handbooks for our faculty as well as our support staff and manager handbooks. These serve essentially as the guide for those individuals. We have the appointment of Ms. reappointment of Ms. Delgarico as our business manager. She's been with our school district for 2 years. This will be a 5-year employment contract with Ms. Delgarico, and we're excited to have her continue with the school district and to lead in the business office. She has done a phenomenal job, and it is a great way to have a wonderful employee, a wonderful leader, continue to lead our school district forward. So congratulations, Ms. Delgarico. Finally, we have the approval of mentors to new teachers. We always do a mentor process whenever we have a new staff member come into the school district. The state requires it. It's actually a 2-year process, but we kind of take it a step further and just make sure that these staff members understand whether it's a brand new staff member to education or it's someone that is new to our school district, understanding the format of Brandywine, also understanding education. And so we have a list of mentors here to partner with for the start of the school year here. That is the end of the personnel report.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments?
I'm sure you don't want to cell phone gong me, but I do just have a observation. So the item about the painters, I think it's a really innovative approach rather than contracting out seasoned painters to use these folks. When you look at their background and resume, they're college students. So $25 an hour, or recent college graduate perhaps, but $25 an hour and $20 an hour juxtaposed right below it to our in-house secretaries who interact with students, who interact with staff, who interact with parents. And when I look at that $25 an hour and $20 an hour to paint the walls of our building this summer as summer help compared to what we're paying our in-house people who are highly visible, full-time employees, dedicated to the program, not just part-time, I look at that and say something's off. Either we're paying too much for painters or we're not paying enough for our in-house secretaries. So I appreciate the $1 an hour blip. You guys know me, I'm super cost conscious. The way I fall on this is $25 and $20 an hour for in-house painters probably is too robust. I imagine that's why you got a great response.
So the reason we came up with that number is we looked at the market value for what a painter receives and came in pretty significantly below that. But we had to balance that out between not coming too low and not being able to attract anyone.
Yeah,
so it was a striking the balance between knowing what someone gets if you have them come in and what our contracts have been versus still being able to get someone decent to work for the school district.
Totally fair, but you've asked us to review their resumes as well. Mm-hmm. And the resumes these are not career painters. Right. These are folks who have some skills in art, and I'm sure they'll do a fabulous job. And they're probably worth every penny personally because they have good character and these are good kids, but they're not professional painters. And I think of the folks in-house supporting our administrators as professionals. So slight difference there, but anyway, okay. Thank you for allowing that.
Any other questions or comments? Anything from the public? Could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Reitauer?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser? Yes. Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hafner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschildt,
Yes.
Mrs. Hune,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you. I do need to announce that we had an executive session prior to the meeting in regards to negotiations. Yeah, any other public comment? Hearing none, could I get a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Wagaman,
Yes.
one final thing. I believe this is Mr. Volker's final board meeting. And I think we'd be remiss to adjourn without publicly acknowledging again. I know at the last
Good
board
catch.
meeting. Yeah, let's give Tom a round of applause to show our appreciation. Stand up and go dance in the middle or something. We celebrated Tom last board meeting, but I think it's appropriate as you head out the door to Daniel Boone. You're going to do a terrific job there. We happen to run a business in Amity Township, and so far this spring, I've gotten a lot of customer interaction, and folks need you there. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing buzz over there that they need you, and I keep telling them they're getting a winner. So our loss is Daniel Boone's gain, and it's going to be great for Berks County public education. So thank you for everything you helped us achieve so far, and best of luck to you as you take this big next step in your career.
It's been a pleasure every day. Even the hard days, I always said it never felt like work. And the district is very well positioned for success moving forward. Great leadership, incredible. You guys are in great hands, but the nice thing is I'm not dying. I'm only a phone call away. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Volker. Could I get a motion, a second for adjournment?
So move sheets. Second right now.
Perfect.
Have a great summer, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everyone.